And recording has started, and great. We are live on Facebook. So welcome everybody. This is Joe Milton of the International Society of Professional Wedding Photographers, the ISPWP. And today is another interview with one of our members. We have Orlando Suarez from Kennesaw, Georgia, which I just learned is a suburb of Atlanta, since I've never been to either Kennesaw or Atlanta. One of these days I'll have to go there. But welcome, Orlando. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure, our pleasure. So I understand that you are a husband and wife team, and your wife Lissette shoots along with you. Is that? Why don't you just give us a little bit of background, or like a profile of your business and how you shoot and how you got started? I'm always curious to see the origin story of photographers. Everybody has a unique story.
Sure. Well, happy to be here, by the way, and thank you for doing this. Again, I'm Orlando Suarez, and my wife, Lissette Suarez. We are a husband and wife team. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. She's from Miami, Florida. But Atlanta has basically been our home for the last 24 years, and it's a great place to be. We enjoy it quite a bit. We've been shooting weddings since about 2011, so about 9 years now. And really, the way it all got started, you have to kind of go way back. My wife is the one who actually got started in photography first. She studied photography. She actually did some film photography herself for a while. Shortly after
that's dating herself now. Go back to film.
Yeah, both of us, right?
That's right. Me too.
That's been a while.
Yeah.
Shortly after we got married, our corporate jobs were doing well, and we kind of gravitated away from the arts. I actually got started myself with animation, drawing, and painting. Mm-hmm. So we both had a background in the arts. But jobs kind of steered us away from that. We did well with the corporate world. And it was around maybe 2010 where we were starting to feel a little burnout. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to kind of get back to our roots artistically. So we had her quit her job and kind of start, all the fundamentals of getting a photography business put together. Yeah. While I still kept the job going. Okay. And so that was nice because it allowed us to really get back to what we love doing. And I honestly wasn't really all that drenched into photography at that moment. I was doing it more for her, but she kind of got the love going.
Interesting.
Me, and it turned out to be an instant payback artistically, because in your adult life, it's kind of hard to take time for drawing and painting. It's a medium that takes more time to kind of see your results. Where
sure.
With photography, you get an immediate payback.
Yeah.
And so when I started to see that, it's like a whole new door opened up to kind of reach into my past and the things that I used to like to do. So
interesting. So when you were doing like your animation and artwork, your fine artwork, was that a hobby? Were you selling your works? How did that go?
It started as a hobby. Yeah. I got a scholarship to go to school for that as well. I was doing some work on the side for myself. But then, normal work did well for me, and it took off so much that I just didn't have the time to continue doing it. I kind of just veered away from it.
Yeah, only so many hours in the day, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I get it. So up until 2010, 2011, are you saying like even though Lissette had done a lot of photography, she'd never done a wedding? Was her first wedding in that time frame, or has she dabbled in it before that? Actually,
we had done weddings on the side for friends, like most photographers do.
Mm-hmm. To get started, right?
Basically doing favors and
sure.
Or basically doing weddings for free and things of that nature. And so we took most of 2010 just to kind of get all the incidentals taken care of, and then it really wasn't until 2011 where we started to do some weddings. We did second shootings for other photographers here in the area, just to get our feet, going in the rhythm of what we were going to do. And by mid 2011, late 2011, in that time frame, is where we really started to heavily get involved with wedding photography again.
Okay. Yeah, and so you had already had to like cold call some of the photographers in the area to say, "Hey, we're new. Can we second shoot?" I mean, you really have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit, don't you? If you're
Yeah,
new.
you do. You basically just have to be humble, take risks, and see who's willing to work with you. And thankfully, at the time, we had an opportunity to pair up with a photographer that slowly started using us within the weddings, and eventually we started doing weddings on our own for him as an associate until we could finally say, hey, I think we're ready to just start generating our own weddings for our own business.
Okay. Did you do like many sort of conferences or workshops to sort of develop some of those basic style points or logistics about wedding, or even like the business side of it? I mean, how did you get the ball rolling at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, definitely workshops was one of the things. I felt that technically I had to improve, and I had to sharpen my way of looking at things from a photography standpoint. And so one of the first workshops that I reached out and did was Parker Pfister out of North Carolina, which was an eye-opening experience.
Parker's kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, he's an excellent photographer. He was more into weddings back at that time.
Right.
And so we went up to North Carolina, did a workshop up there, and that was great. That really helped me out quite a bit. Since then, I've been able to do other workshops with Two Man, Lanny and Erica, Sam Hurd, Jeff Newsom, and all of those folks really had things that drew me style-wise to how they do their photography. And I think those things, along with just, basically throwing yourself into the fire and working weddings and shooting for others, all those things helped me build throughout the years.
And for those of you who are new, those are some of the top names in the workshop and wedding industry. So you're learning from the best, really. So nice selection of workshops there. So how did that affect your style, though? So how would your this style begin, and maybe how has your style evolved over those years?
Yeah, I think when we first started, our photography was very flat lighting-wise, and so it had just a lighter look to it. Nowadays, when you look at our photography, it's very different, because really what we gravitate to is something that's more dramatic, more punchy. So we like a lot of contrast in our photography. I would say that our style is a 80-90% heavily tilted on candid or documentary style photography. We just, unpose, camera unaware, just follow the couple around or the family, let things unfold and shoot that way and try to shoot it as creatively as possible. And then the other 10 to 20% is lit portraiture, off-camera flash, styled shots, so that we can balance that out. We like to have a little bit of both worlds, but obviously the candid stuff is, takes a primary seat to everything we do.
Right. Okay, so when you take that 10 to 20% of the post shots, are you talking about you have that portrait session with the bride and groom, and is that where you focus that, the posing, the lighting, the setups, and how much time does that usually take, or does it vary like a lot from wedding to wedding? Or do you try and work with them like ahead of time to set their expectations? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we try ahead of time to get the couple to see the importance of setting a decent amount of time aside for portraits or pose shots, something a little bit more stylized. But really, at the end of the day, it all depends on what the couple actually gives you, or if the schedule is running behind. And a lot of times you think you're going to get 30 minutes and you end up getting 10 or 15. And so you just have to work with what you get.
Yeah.
And so it depends. But we try to educate as much as possible ahead of time. When we first sit down with the couple, When we're doing the engagement sessions with them, we kind of show them, hey, you see the process, how it's going here in the engagement session. This will kind of give you an idea of what it'll be like when we actually get to the portraiture side of your wedding. So it's good to have, some extra time built in so that we can get you the most pictures as we can. We're going to have a lot of candid shots, a lot of photojournalism, and we're going to try to do that as creatively as possible, but it would be nice to have this amount of time for your portraits.
Yeah. How important would you say those engagement sessions are with the couple, like during the time way before the wedding, to get to know them, get to know you, they're getting comfortable in front of a camera, that kind of a thing? What's the big benefit from your standpoint for the engagement sessions?
I think they're great, and they're very essential from our standpoint, because you get that extra layer of time to get to know the couple even better beyond any conversations that you've had at a meeting or over the phone with them. When you're actually in the engagement session is where you get to see them kind of let loose a little bit. You get a feeling for who's more comfortable in front of the camera and who isn't. And, some of their likes, their personal likes, because we try to cater our images around things that are important to them. So when you have that time to just go out somewhere, wherever that is, and spend a couple hours with them, talking to them as you're working through pictures, and just seeing how they interact as a couple, what makes them unique, what's original to them, those two personalities, how do they mesh up? What kind of dynamics come around that? I think that's really beneficial to us and to them, because then when we get to the wedding day, we're not a stranger to them. We're very comfortable with what their particular needs are, and so it helps us just anticipate better, work faster throughout the wedding day.
Yeah. Do you almost always do engagement sessions? Like, what percentage of your clients do the engagement session? And is it sort of included into your so-called package, or is it like a la carte pricing? How do you work that?
Yeah, up to this moment, we've just included it in our packages because for us, it's been important to have that layer of additional photography and time to spend with the couple. We haven't gone a la carte with it yet. What we do is we offer the session for free, and we do a video slideshow of some of the images. But what we do after the fact is that they're welcome to purchase, individual prints, and we have a whole process around that.
Okay. So you say here, we'll shoot your wedding, and we're going to throw in the wedding engagement session for free, and then they can take it or not take it as they see fit, because in their view, from the pricing, it's free. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what percentage of them would do it? I can't remember if we covered that. What percentage of your clients actually do that?
I'd say probably 90% of the couples that we do.
Yeah.
At least here in Georgia, most couples are asking us for engagement sessions. So I know that may vary across the country, or the type of areas where one shoots, but for us here, it's fairly common.
Yeah, it may vary a bit by geography. I've kind of experienced that from talking to different people, not just in the U.S. but around the world. It's different approach. So, do you have like a particularly memorable engagement session story that you'd like to tell? I'm springing that up totally upon you. If you can think of one that was particularly in your head that might be worthwhile talking about.
We had a trip to Iceland planned. We were planning to do a trip for ourselves just as a vacation, and so we were doing a lot of research on where to go, what to do, this and that. Started looking at a lot of travel blogs, and we started interacting with those blogs. And long story short, we were able to connect with a couple. Actually, the girl was from the States, from Portland.
Oh, nice.
And
go Portland.
And yeah, Portland. And he was from Iceland, so they were living over there, and we were able to get an engagement session done over there, which later led to a wedding as well for us. But it was great to be able to head out there and shoot in an environment that's totally different from anything that we had experienced up to that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. The landscape of Iceland is really unique, isn't it? It's beautiful, and no place like it in the world. I've never been there. I know people have been there, and I've seen the pictures. But yeah, it's got quite a stark, beautiful, very photogenic landscape for sure.
Yeah, it's like another planet.
It is like another planet. That's what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fantastic segue. This was a totally unplanned segue to talk about Iceland and destination weddings. So that worked out perfectly. I did notice in your ISPWP profile that you do promote shooting in Iceland and New Zealand. So I guess that answers the Iceland question, how the whole Iceland thing got in there. What about New Zealand? What's the attraction or the connection to New Zealand?
Well, New Zealand is a place we would like to shoot, so we're promoting that to go to New Zealand.
Oh, fantastic.
We actually just came from New Zealand on a personal vacation, just to kind of get the lay of the land. We were there in December.
Aren't there more sheep than people in New Zealand? That's what I keep hearing.
Oh, yes. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, yeah. But it's a gorgeous place, very unique in its own right. And we're looking to get back there as soon as possible, when the world can travel again.
Yeah.
But really, most of our destination work has taken us to other locations.
Like where primarily? Where do you typically go for destinations?
Well, our first destination was Negril, Jamaica. And that was a pretty interesting thing because it was way back at the beginning when we were starting our business. And we got a call out of the blue from a couple in San Diego who were getting married in Jamaica, and they were looking for photographers. And they had looked in the islands and even in Florida to try and find a photographer because those are the closest locations to Jamaica. But they hadn't found anything that they really connected with photography-wise. And so they actually started looking into some photographers in Georgia, and they called us up. And so we had a Skype meeting with them. And one thing led to another. We had a really good connection online. And we got hired for their wedding, just out of the blue. And that's how we got started with Destination Weddings. We went down there, spent a couple of days before the wedding, just hanging out with them and their family. And then finally shot the wedding. And that was a great experience because it opened our eyes up to what else wedding photography can be. To that point, we had just done local weddings or weddings for friends. Since we love to travel and we're constantly doing that on our own, even if we don't have weddings, it was a great thing to add to our overall business. And so from there, other locations were made possible by starting to show that work.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because if you show it, people will say, "Oh, this is nothing new to them. They're comfortable with destination weddings." Makes it a no-brainer. I guess from a photographer standpoint, the key thing to remember is it's not a vacation unless you actually plan the vacation time before and or after the wedding, because it's in many ways it can be more work than shooting a local wedding, right?
Yeah, it actually is, and you have to take into account all the things that you have to carry. You got to make sure that you're shooting in an area where you're actually permitted to do that, and there's paperwork that you really need to secure. And so, destination photography is great. There's a lot more to it than the glamorous look that it may have. That we're just going to go to this incredible place and everything's going to be easy and fun. And there's actually maybe more work to destination weddings than normal weddings in some cases.
Right. And then, of course, you have the risk of, staying healthy and not getting lost and all the logistics of travel and everything else that can go wrong. I've heard horror stories of, missing planes or, travel delays. It has its own little risk level of problems that could be introduced with destination stuff. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
But yeah,
right, absolutely.
But the payoff is great. What about in terms of you started in 2010, 2011, so we're talking about roughly 10 years or so. So over that 10 years and going forward, how do you continue to like challenge yourself or inspire yourself to continue to push your photography forward?
Me personally, I'm always trying to mix things up. I hate repeating myself unnecessarily. So obviously, during the course of the day, there's a lot of images that you're shooting where you're going to have a similar look to it just because of the way a wedding unfolds and what you need to deliver for your couples. You always have to have standard shots for your couples, right? They're going to be expecting that. But I have to mix things up. And so I'm constantly building challenges for myself each month. So I kind of say to myself, okay, this month I'm going to try to focus on this. And usually what I try to do is when we go out in engagement sessions, after we've got several images in the can, so to speak, that we know we can deliver something solid to the client, I'll incorporate something new. And I'll be very frank with with our couple and say, hey, I want to try something new. Is it okay with you? I mean, it's a new technique, and if it works out, I think it's going to be fantastic, and you're going to have something that none of your friends will have. And so everybody's
How do you say no to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're just being frank and upfront. It may work, it may not. And if it does, it's going to be really good, and you've got something else to add to your collection. And so everybody's been fantastic for that. I think the type of client that gravitates to us is very photography adventurous, or adventurous in their photography likes. And so, that's one of the things that we do. I'm also constantly looking to try using different tools. So continuing to build the off-camera flash skills in many different ways. But I also have to incorporate other things like shooting through prisms or crystals, using mirrors, finding ways to incorporate shadows in different ways, long exposure. And then how do you mix all of that, like long exposure with a prism? And, just experimenting so that you can find something new, because I think it's very easy to get stale.
Sure.
I don't want to get robotic and just delivering things for the sake of delivering them. And so that's kind of the idea why I've taken some of the workshops I have, because some of these folks, like Sam Hurd, I've learned quite a bit from in that regard. And so those are the kind of things that we do to creatively keep growing and challenging ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you definitely want to avoid the burnout and the repetitiveness that some photographers fall into, and it becomes a grind, right? You don't want to do that. It's not good for you. It's not good for your clients. And, the whole reason that we get into wedding photography is because you have that creative aspect to it. And you can explore your artistic side and continue to, how many careers can you go day to day and you still get excited about something that you see or something new that you come across, right? Or something new that you've created, right? That's just it's an incredible blessing to be able to do that, right, for your career. So yeah, good for you. What about post-processing though? Does that play into your artistic approach, or do you do a lot of the editing yourself? Do you outsource your editing? What's your approach there?
No, we do all our editing in-house currently. So the bulk of the standard editing that we deliver on weddings is done by my wife. And then anything that needs extra work, if you will, for like an album or for a big print or something that we're going to do, we do a lot of additional editing work with that, cleaning things up, color correction and stuff like that. We tend to use Develop to help us with that, and it's been great. Yeah. And
DVLOP, by the way.
Yeah. But it's been fantastic for us, and we enjoy it. And so we, from the editing standpoint, we only go into Photoshop when we really need to. We try to get everything as correct as we can in camera, but just to clean things up, if there's a thermostat on a wall somewhere, you need to clean up some sensor dust. Yeah. Sometimes you have to remove some things out of the frame that just detract from the edges of an image. But really Photoshop is just something we do secondary. We're not doing any double exposures on Photoshop or anything like that.
Not a lot of heavy composite images or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing like that.
Okay.
Unless maybe every once in a while we'll do maybe a composite of a table setting, so we can light things separately, or if you have an incredibly large bridal group, then we might do separate lighting images and then composite that for the big bridal group. But outside of that, we really don't do much in composites.
Yeah, that's more of an approach of getting the image right versus doing some sort of wild and crazy creative effect, right? It's a totally different approach. Yeah, so in terms of effort and hours, how long does your post-processing typically take for an average wedding?
So I'd say that from the standard editing on what we deliver, it probably takes us about a week.
Okay.
Because my wife, she
don't get behind that way too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we try to keep up with it as much as possible. If we're doing something a little bit that requires a little bit more work than 2 weeks, but we try to get on top of it as quickly as we possibly can, especially when we get into the heaviest part of the wedding season, so things just don't pile up incredibly on us.
Yeah. Okay. What about speaking of Lissette again? Pros and cons. Pluses and minuses working with your spouse on a wedding. And she's not here to defend herself, so.
Oh no, well it's a question we get a lot, and I think the pros are that you're always working with somebody you can rely on. So we've been doing this 9-10 years now consistently, and so we've got our lanes on how we handle a wedding, especially during the ceremony and what we do there. If she's taking the front, I'm taking the back. Who's going to go low? Who's going to go high? And because your lane, so to speak, you're able to get better imagery and more of it for your couples. You can always rely on that second person being there. I really look at photographers that shoot by themselves and always have to go look for a second shooter or an associate, and so I imagine that can be pretty tough, not knowing what you're going to get every wedding unless you have a consistent second shooter with you. So I think that's an advantage. That's a pro.
Yeah.
Some disadvantages sometimes. We're competitive, and so
okay.
So we. You see a shot, and sometimes the initial reaction is to go get that, and sometimes you don't realize where one person may be for that specific moment if it's a real great moment. So things like that. So I think it's really just a case of balancing things and kind of game planning before you go into a wedding. Hey, I'm going to do this, you do that, and or if you want to switch up, then just let me know. Right,
okay.
Maybe I'll light a bit for you, and you just shoot for this portion of the wedding, whatever that may be, or vice versa. I think it's just a lot of communication and game planning.
Yeah. Well, I think I was thinking in terms of being competitive, and that could be actually a plus for your client if you're both competing to try and get the better image. Right? Overall, you're going to get better images, right?
Yeah. Except that when you accidentally get into her shot or something like that, it's like, get out of my way, that kind of thing. But I think that happens to everybody that's a husband and wife couple, and it's just it's hard, because weddings have so many moving parts, and as a photographer, you have a responsibility to move around those parts to get the angles and the creative shots. And so, as much as we have a process, there's still going to be undoubtedly times where, by mistake, without knowing, you're going to walk into a shot or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of images, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to let's see. I gotta get this set up correctly. I gotta go into Skype, and I got to share my screen. I'm gonna start sharing, and I'm going to also make sure the broadcasting thing goes through sharing the screen. And finally, actually select a picture. Okay, so you should be able to see these images here. You see those, Orlando?
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfectly.
great. Awesome. Okay. So let me just double check that the settings are good. Yep, we're sharing the screen. Okay, good. So let's start talking about some of these pictures.
Sure. So this is Cancun, Mexico, a few years back, and this was right after the ceremony. We had a limited window of time to take the portraits for the couple, and as you can kind of see in the distance there, off to the left, we had storm clouds brewing in the distance. There was a storm coming in, so we really had to kind of scramble to get some images. And there was this long pier on the beach right behind the area where they got married. So we took the couple out there so we could get some images. And this is actually my wife, by the way, who took this image. I should state that.
Yes.
So I'm actually on the pier lighting with our ProPhoto gear. What you can't see there is that I got photoshopped out of the image, obviously.
Okay.
The groom decided to tilt the bride on his own to do the kiss shot. We don't normally go for those big, majestic kiss shots, but that was his doing, and so because it came out of him, we decided to keep it, and we enjoyed it a lot in the scene. So she's shooting from the beach, way back at the beach, towards the pier, in order to get that shot. And this is about 10-15 minutes after this shot was taken. The skies opened up, and we had to scramble to pick up all our gear and run into the hotel. Yeah, because it was a downpour.
Yeah, and that's always the deceptive thing about these types of pictures is the people say, "Oh, this is." I see these sort of landscape photos a lot, but you don't realize that you literally have a split second for some of these photos to get the sky just right and the colors just right. And it's being in the right place and planning it correctly and getting the couple in place at the right time. There's all sorts of things going on in the background to make the image work properly. Not to mention the very creative and good use of erasing you in Photoshop. That's well done.
Yeah.
But yeah,
thank you.
Otherwise, how are you going to get that light over there, right?
Right.
And here it looks like I'm assuming you do a number of Indian weddings because I saw some of those in your portfolio.
Yeah, this is actually a destination wedding. So this was shot in India.
Okay.
In a place called Chandigarh, up north, and this is a couple from Atlanta. And it was funny because you had asked about an interesting engagement session story. We had this couple actually walk up to us in a bridal show here in Atlanta, and they asked us for the engagement session, and we said, well, we can do your wedding too. And they said, well, we're going to get married out of town, so all we want is the engagement session so we can remember, have something from Atlanta. And so we sold them the engagement session, and we went out and did it with them. And about an hour into the session, we were connecting really well with the couple, and the groom turned over and said, hey, do you want to go to India? Just like that, like very nonchalantly.
And you said, sure.
And I was like, no, you're kidding, right? Because he's a funny guy. He's a jokester.
Oh, okay.
And I thought he was joking, and he says, no, I'm serious. And it turns out they were doing two weddings, one in Milwaukee, where the bride is from, and the other in India for his side of the family. And they weren't too crazy about the local photographers that they had over there, the style of photography they do in that area.
Right.
And so they wanted something a little different. And they hired us to go out to India. And we actually spent a week with them prior to the wedding, shooting them as we went around touring some areas. But this is actually one of their portraits right after the ceremony when they got married over there.
What a fantastic opportunity, though. How much warning time did you have before he asked you before you had to go?
Oh, we had several months, so
Oh,
we had
okay.
a lot of time to get prepared.
Within a couple weeks. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you say about this one. This is a really interesting photo.
Oh, thank you. So this was the last wedding we did last year, 2019, in December. And we were actually in a small hotel. It was pouring outside, so we couldn't do any photos outside. And we were trying to find something to do inside. And, everything was pretty bland in the hotel with the exception of this elevator corridor. This is actually an elevator area, like a little elevator lobby.
Okay.
Where they had this mirror that had kind of like a starburst pattern coming out from the back. What you can't see behind the bride's head is that the mirror is about this big. It's really small.
Okay.
And she's actually sitting on a table. So what we did is we sat her on the table and positioned her head so it would cover the mirror, but you could still see the starburst pattern. And then we pulled the groom towards me about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 feet, I think it was, away from her. And so I'm kind of standing on my tippy toes to shoot over his shoulder. And on the right-hand side of the image, camera right, is my wife with a Profoto B2.
Okay.
Lighting the bride from up top, so that's how we get the light on the bride. And at the same time, we're able to basically silhouette the groom who's closer up. And we just wanted to have those layers.
Right, because the light's behind him, right?
Right. So, it's that's basically how it was done. But really, to the left of the groom is where the elevator doors are. And to the right or camera right is a wall with another mirror on it, but that mirror really wasn't offering much at the time, so we felt this was the way to go, and that's what came from it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, this is one of those like a master class, is in that you can create a very interesting image in a place or a location that doesn't seem that promising. You think, okay, I'm outside an elevator. What can I do? I only have this tiny little space, or I'm in an alley, or I'm in this old hall or something. But to be able to both envision it and then to figure out how to light it and figure out how to pose it and to get such an amazing images is a real testament to your guys' skill. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I noticed it's going to be prominently featured on some award contest coming up, I'm sure. There's another interesting image that just begs you to ask how you guys made it.
Yeah, so this is actually the same groom in the picture we just saw, the previous picture. This is actually his getting ready portion of the day. And we were in his hotel room, and it just so happens that the room had this oval table, like a coffee table with a mirror on it. It was a mirrored table, and it was very close to the window where the drapes were. So he started getting ready and fiddling with his tie near the table with his back to the window, and I thought, oh wow, this is a great moment here. I had my stand with my lights, my Profoto A1, nearby with a Magmod sphere on that, and a grid. And so I positioned it in such a way so that I could get some light on his face and be able to make him out so he wouldn't totally go silhouetted on me. And positioned myself so that I could get the picture composed inside the mirror so I can, try to keep his head and his arms, not getting cut off from the edges of the table. And then his legs, this picture was taken the other way around, so it's actually been flipped around to get a different perspective. But the way the light from the window lit up the rug kind of makes it the patterns in the rug. It had a real squiggly pattern, it almost makes it look like there's lightning bolts or electricity coming out
right.
of the table. So
there's so many great graphical elements in this photo, and it's again, it's the type of thing where if you think about it for just a few seconds, here it's telling the story because you're getting the getting ready part of the story, right? But you're also having a sense of mystery or intrigue around how it was created and what exactly you're looking at. And if the more you look at it, the more interesting it gets. I just think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see all the frames around this one too.
Yeah, it took
if it were me, I'd have like 50 shots, and finally I got one that's lined up just right. Him just holding his tie just right. Right.
Yeah, it took about 100 shots, I think, to get that one because he kept moving around. And
I know, that drive you crazy.
Yeah.
and because you can see it, you know that you're close. You know you can envision the image you're going to get. It's just not working, and then finally you get it.
Right.
Okay, I'm guessing some sort of mirror or reflective material used here.
Yeah, so this is Key Biscayne, Florida, and Bill Bragg State Park. It's late afternoon with a couple doing an engagement session, and the sky was really neat. And there's many other pictures that we have from this session that are in color and look great, but there's something about doing the black and white that really called on this when we edited it. But basically the way we got the shot is we had the couple stand really far away, I guess maybe, 20, 25 feet away on the edge of a ocean wall. So to the left of where the guy is, that's basically water. It's the open water there. And to the right of where the girl is the ocean wall and whatever, lawn area there was over there.
Okay.
And I didn't want to show that. What I wanted to do was kind of repeat the sky and make it look as if they were floating up in the sky. And usually I'll do this type of shot with an iPhone or, a smartphone where you use your screen.
Right, as the mirror.
A lot of photographers do this, right? Where they get their camera and just kind of put it up like that. But before I had gone into this session, I was in an auto parts store, an advanced auto parts store, and I saw those one of these things. It's a mirror for a pickup, and it was so much wider.
The side mirror.
Yeah. For the side mirror, and it's you don't get that dark tint that you get off phones, so it doesn't darken the bottom of your reflection like phones will, and you get so much more space to play with on something this size. So this is basically what was used instead of a phone on the camera on the lens, and it reflects a lot better. It you actually have to bring your f-stop quite a bit down. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was 1.4 or something like that, so that you can blur that area quite a bit as much as possible. You can actually see a little bit of the city on the bottom right, the city of Miami in the distance off that dark cloud.
Oh, the very tips of the high rises.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at it closely, you'll see it there. But so yeah, that's basically how it was done. And then in post, I purposely did a 16:9 crop because I wanted to show that length to the picture. And I believe we used the two-man Jaeger bomb on this. Jaeger bomb or Expressor. I'm not sure which of the presets it was at this moment, but
I foresee a workshop coming out of you called "How to Use Auto Parts for Creative Wedding Photography." That would
never thought it.
That would get some attention. This looks like some sort of outdoor theater, or is it an indoor theater?
It's an indoor theater. This is actually This is the Fox Theater in Atlanta. It's well known here in this area, and the couple had chosen this venue for their wedding reception. And so obviously you go to a theater like this and you got to get something inside the theater. The problem with this day was there was a concert that was being set up. The Revivalists were playing that day.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we were told is if you want to shoot in the theater, you're only going to get 20 minutes, and you can't shoot towards the stage because they were setting up, and so there was a lot of restrictions on that. We had to shoot towards the seating or, use the back of the theater. And so
that took some quick thinking then.
Yeah. So we're actually using two lights here. From camera right, we have a B2 that's shooting straight at the bride. That's how we lit up the bride. And then the groom is further up on the stairs, and my wife is actually sitting right in front of the groom on the stairs with a Profoto A1 on a Magmod sphere. And that's how we're getting that kind of glowing white light to be able to make him stand out from the dark background.
Well, that's
and
also lighting the ceiling there too, right?
Yeah, it's well, the ceiling was self-lit, but it helped a bit.
Okay.
And but it was really more to kind of pull him out of the darkness and be able to rim light him a bit. Wanted to center her head, which was very brightly lit by the light, up against his back, which is totally black, so he could have that contrast. And so that's basically how it is. The shot's being taken. I'm basically up against the railing of the theater, shooting towards the bride and the groom, and we used a very wide lens here, so we could capture as much as we could. Their ceiling is naturally blue, so that's lit up by them, not us. And we try to capture as much of the environment as possible.
Okay. It's a very effective, albeit unusual setup, right? So my question is, you walk into the theater, you're told about the restrictions about where you can and cannot point your cameras. In your mind, how long does it take for you to envision this shot? Because you not only have to envision it in your own mind, you have to think, okay, where do I place him? How do I light it? How do I make sure he's standing out above her? I mean, how long does that process take for you? Or is it quick, or did you go through multiple different setups until you found one that worked?
Well, one thing that helped a little bit is, being in Atlanta, we've been in the Fox Theater many times before, and so you have an idea of some of the things that are available to you. For this particular shot, I think it took me about 4 minutes to, we were kind of restricted to only having one half of the theater anyways. So we kind of had to concentrate in one area. And so the idea was, okay, how do I make the couple stand out from everything that is so dark, still have the colorful lighting and the aspects of the theater that everybody loves?
Right.
And so, as long as the great thing about having tools like Profoto and Magmod is that it really helps you do things quickly. And since you can pinpoint light better now with these tools, you can really do things in a much shorter amount of time. But my idea was just to get her. I wanted, again, that layered look, kind of like what we did with the black and white, but with more of an environment look here, because the environment was prettier. And I always like that staggered, layered look. I'd like modern, abstract poses. And my whole idea was just to get the bride in a clear, dark space, or a dark background, but still be able to show the groom. And so that's what came of it.
It's just great thinking. I think what you need to do is show this video to Profoto and Magmod and get little royalties there.
Oh, wow.
Giving them some free advertising. Okay, this is Iceland.
Yes. So this is a big waterfall that is well known over there, called Seljalandsfoss. It's way out in the middle of nowhere, off the ring road, for those that know Iceland. And the cool thing about this is the bride was set on getting her portraits done up here. And if you've ever been to this waterfall, you know that you've got to do some climbing to get up there, a lot of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And the spray that comes off that waterfall goes everywhere. So even if it's not raining, you're still going to get some spray. And she made the hike up in her heels to get up there. And the place was crawling with tourists.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we did have to do is, Photoshop some of the people out of the image. But the idea was to go from the side, because the waterfall, the way it was flowing that day, had a gap in the middle. And so I wanted to compose them in the middle of that gap,
mm-hmm.
and having, the whitewash kind of come on both sides of them and still get a panoramic view of the rest of the area. So I'm maybe about 10, 15 feet back. My wife is lighting from camera right towards them, again using ProPhoto. We took our gear up there, and we took our B2s up there actually.
Wow!
And so that's how we got this picture.
Huh? Yeah. Taking your stuff on a hike. But to have clients willing to do that is always a nice perk, because not all clients are willing to do that. But it gets great images for them and for you. So we photographers, we love adventurous clients.
Yeah, those are the best.
Those are the best. Yeah. Looks like another Indian wedding.
Yeah, so this one's in Memphis, Tennessee.
Ah, okay.
And this particular wedding was done out in the middle of a pond, a big pond. It's almost like a lake. In the middle of the pond, they've got this huge gazebo, and it was actually one of the hottest days of the summer in Memphis, over 100 degrees. And so the ceremony was happening under that gazebo in the middle of the pond. But so we had a lot of light coming in because the sun was strong. It was kind of middle of the day. We had some shade because of the canopy of the gazebo. But I'm literally just kneeling in front of the couple. The tradition in these type of ceremonies is that everybody's right on top, near the couple, and so I literally had some people leaning on me to get their own pictures with their phones. And so this portion with the rice is a classic portion of these types of weddings, and so I just wanted to get some motion into the picture, and so I tried to focus on her primarily to get her expression. She was a little bit more expressive than he was. Everybody was joining in. So I dragged the shutter just a little bit slower, just so that I could get a little bit of blur. And it took a lot of shots, but most of them were not looking good. But this one came out, and we were able to get her face tack sharp while still getting the rice kind of moving around. And you can actually see that he's reaching for his scoop of rice at the same time. You see some motion with him too, but it just worked out that everybody's faces kind of contributed to the back scene as well.
Yeah, the motion on his face doesn't bother me at all, because it adds to, it's like the movement of the rice. I mean, I think the important thing here is the sharpness and expression on her face, and the fact that, every expression in the image is well done. It's always like you'll have one or two people where it doesn't work, but this one, everyone looks great. Her face is perfectly lit. So this was not using any additional light at all?
I actually had a on-camera flash.
Okay.
I couldn't put a stand in there because of the amount of people that were there.
Sure.
So I basically had to go on camera with a sphere, and so that's what allowed me to freeze the portion of her face that you see there. Yeah.
Okay. But again, all around good technical execution, because you do want things sharp, and you were looking for the movement in the rice, and you're able to get exactly what you were shooting for. So not always easy to do. This one's great too.
So this was a wedding here in Atlanta at the Four Seasons Hotel, and just a very simple portrait. We like it simply because it just so happens that the dress she wore at that moment went so well with the mural that was on the wall. So basically what the hotel did is they kind of like a stairwell area. It has a big concrete wall, and they had some pipes running through it. And as you can see, there's that door behind them is the entry to the stairwell. But they had a artist come in and do a magnificent mural on that wall, and so obviously it was just calling out to do something with that. So it's a very simple, happy portrait. The big thing about this is when we pose portraits, we still want to kind of make it look real, like we're not posing. And so it takes a lot of communication with the couple to make them laugh. And they're a great couple. I mean, as it is, they're very easy to get them to react. But we were just saying stupid stuff and making cheesy jokes and whatever we could to get them to respond and make it look as intimate and as real as possible, even though this is obviously a posed portrait. And it just, makes it a little bit more lifelike.
Yeah. No, it's that nice combination of they're well placed, because anytime you have a good mural on a wall, it works well for a background almost universally. And but to get a nice natural, because their expression does look very natural, and I think that's the key. We've got 4 more to look at. Speaking of murals,
yeah.
See, it always works.
Right. So this is basically the same principle as the last image you saw. This is the Belt Line here in Atlanta. It's an area, a really large area that has art all along the walkways. And in one of the underpasses, one of the bridge underpasses, they've got this beautiful koi mural that you see there. And so the couple really wanted to have something with that. But again, the key is trying to get some kind of an expression out of the couple that looks real. And so
as we heads together, look at the camera and smile, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really we deliver those kind of images where a couple looks straight at the camera because, those are standard photos everybody has to deliver. But for what we like to show the world, we want it to look more lifelike. And so what we found out as we were walking with them through the area was that he's very ticklish. And so most couple poses, it's usually the guy that's hugging the girl in this form, but we actually got her to do it. And we said, go to town on him, start tickling him in his ribs. And that's what she did. And so he got obviously a very natural reaction to that. And then she reacted to that. And all we did was really just turn them towards the sun that was coming in from camera right. So there's no real lighting on this. It's just all natural light.
Nice.
And then we cropped it in such a way that we didn't show anything but the mural.
Yeah.
And try to get them in the dark area of the mural as much as possible, even though the fish are everywhere.
Yeah, it's nice when you can just when the lighting just works naturally. I just love it when that happens. And yeah, it's another great example of just getting a natural expression out of them. And like you said, we all want to have the standard pictures because they all want that. Typically, parents like it, grandparents like it, and even the couple typically likes it to have just a so-called normal portrait smiling at the camera type on the wall. But these are the images that make the wedding unique. These are the images that they'll actually remember from the wedding because they stand out so much. So we always like to say, take the safe shot and then do the creative shot.
So yeah, this photo here is actually the groom from the mural we just saw a couple pictures back, that blue and pink floral mural.
Right. Oh, same guy?
Same guy. This is actually what they call their pithy ceremony. And basically what happens is that the groomsmen get to pelt the groom with all sorts of food. So they had ketchup, mustard, pickles. You see some cotton balls hanging off there, mayonnaise. I mean, they literally went to the grocery store and spent about $300 in everything they could find.
Oh, man.
Cheese balls, and they nailed him with that. And there was one point where everybody was just kind of smearing it all over his face. And I tried to get in as close as possible because they were splattering that stuff everywhere.
Yeah. You don't want to get that on you don't want to get that on your cameras.
Yeah. But I just wanted to get his reaction, because it smelled horrible. Once you combine all those ingredients together, it smells horrible. But I wonder
there was a shower nearby.
Yeah, there was. They actually had to hose them down. But this was done in a venue here called Ventanas at the roof level. They had to put tarp everywhere on the floor to do it. But I just wanted to get all the hands coming in towards the face, and that action of smearing it, and how he looked or felt about that.
So interesting choice for black and white. So what's your thought process on black and white versus color for an image like this?
Well, in this particular image, I did it black and white because by this point, the ingredients had all been mixed up. And so the ketchup didn't look red anymore and the mustard didn't look yellow. When you combine that, it looks brown. And so the colors really weren't, to me, I think you could get more texture and contrast from going black and white than just keeping this one in color. I've got many other portions of this scene in color where the ingredients were still colorful, but when they start mixing all up, it just looks like a nasty glob.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's always a dilemma sometimes. Black and white versus color. Black and white versus color.
Yeah.
This is a nice composition here.
Yeah, so this is the belt line again. It's that same area where we took the photo with the koi. There's art installations everywhere you go.
Oh, nice.
And
that's what I was wondering what this was. I thought that's got to be some sort of sculpture art installation of some kind. I can't think of any practical use for it.
Yeah, it's basically these large iron beams, and they're all at different heights, stacked in a particular area. And so it's very graphic, and I'm always looking for geometry when I shoot, how I can include that into images, how we compose. And so I love the lines going straight up like that. The only problem is that if you shoot eye level on this, you're going to see a lot of buildings in the background that we're going through construction. So literally what we had to do here is I had to lie down on the floor and shoot up at the couple. And actually, it doesn't look like it so much, but we actually had them bend at the waist towards me a little bit. And I've got my wife with a Profoto A1 and a sphere and a grid, shooting light into their face so that we could kind of make them stand out from the silhouetted beams in the back. And so basically that's how this was made. Shot from below with the light coming camera right.
Nice. Again, it's a great example to other photographers to say, okay, envisioning it, taking the extra steps to light it professionally is going to make your image stand out from what other photographers can't or won't do, right? Sometimes it's that extra step to visualize it a little bit more strongly, to think about what you want to include and not include, and how am I going to light this in a way that a client themselves couldn't light it, right? Or a bystander or an amateur would light it. And that takes, obviously, learning, practice, experience, failures, right, to learn from. It's very admirable.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Last one. Another vertical.
Okay, so this is the Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina. And so it's just an example of how we try to look for different things to incorporate to make things interesting. And this is obviously a shadow silhouette where the sun was, it was already late in the afternoon. The sun was coming in basically sideways. If you've ever been to the Biltmore, North Carolina, you know they've got a side courtyard that is exposed to the sun in the late afternoon, and they've got a big tree near that area as well. So the sun was coming in hard. No off-camera flasher, obviously just exposing for highlights. And positioned the bride further away from him so that all we would see was her shadow silhouette on the bare wall in the brightest portion. And the groom is naturally getting lit up by the sun himself. You can see the shadow behind him. And then the tree was also casting a shadow on the wall itself. So really the sun did all the work. It was just a matter of positioning the couple this way. There was a kind of like a half pillar there, or a half column. And so we put the groom up there to kind of change the height differential. And all we had to do was have the bride kind of play with her dress a little bit, just so that we could get some separation. It wouldn't be a total blob. We could get those triangles between her arms, and it's hard to get a perfect silhouette on her face because the sun, kind of contorts the shadow a little bit. But we felt it was enough to kind of make the point.
Yeah. No, I like it because in a shot like this, what I've seen, a million times is you'll have a strong shadow against a wall, but it'll be the shadow of the couple, right? They're both in shadow, and that can be beautiful and creative. But the fact that you have one in shadow, where you see her figure, and then he's actually there lit, and at the different angles, there's a lot of visual interest going on in this picture. And again, for something like this, how many setups do you go through? Do you before you come upon this particular combination? Because if it were me, I would probably have, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 ideas that I would run through a number of different ways, and then this would be obviously the hero that I would be showing people. Do you spend a lot of time with different setups, or do you kind of just go for the one that you see in your head?
It depends. For this, I think there was 3 or 4 different things that we did. At one point, he was on the floor, not on the pillar. There's some shots where they're both visible. She's not in shadow, but it's an actual portrait of them. But it depends on the wedding and the situation and the time we have. I'm always trying to find new ways to compose in the sense of posing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And because you get tired of doing, like face each other and or the hugging and all that. And so I'm trying to find different ways to do it. And so before each wedding, I try to visualize a couple of different poses I want to try. And again, I'm very upfront with the couples to say, hey, once we know we have something secure in the can, so to speak, let's try this. Let's see how it goes. And if it works well, you turn the camera and show it to them, and then they're like, "Let's do more,"
Yeah.
And then you get more time, even if you weren't expecting to, because they get into it.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Well, Orlando, it's been just fantastic. I'm really, really impressed. That's just fantastic work from both of you, I'm sure. And your clients are lucky to get a photographer who knows what they're doing and is willing to take the extra steps to do the posing, do the lighting, do the creative compositions and everything else. So really, really well done, and I'm really, really glad to see some of your work here today.
Well, thank you for having me today. We've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So tell everybody who wants to see more of your work, how can they see more of your stuff online?
So our website is Viridian Images Photography. We shortened that down to verimages.com. So it's V as in Victor, IR, images.com.
Okay.
On Instagram, we're Viridian_images. And we're on Facebook as Viridian Images as well. So those are the primary platforms we use.
And I don't want to spoil the surprise. If people want to understand the background to Viridian, they got to go to your website to read the story.
Yeah, it's kind of a different name.
That's all right. Well, Orlando, thanks so much, and give my best to Lissette, and best to you, and thanks again for this talk. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great afternoon.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.